on all the great stuff we heard this week. Many people telling the same joke about every year it's going to be. So I don't know if you were in the room, Marla, earlier, but the forecast is that you can keep running this conference for 10 more years, at least. So I think that joke has been beaten to death. But some of the repeated themes that we've heard over the past 2 days and also this morning are the importance of user experience, the perception of security. I mean, it's important, but consumers don't recognize that mobile payments are more secure. We've heard a lot about identity, and then maybe even more importantly, the important role that merchants play in the ecosystem, along with a tie-in with loyalty. So this panel is going to talk about implementation challenges that relate to those issues. And first, I will let the panelists, these experts, introduce themselves and provide a preliminary point of view.
So my name is Matthew Donnelly. I am Vice President of Solutions and Compliance at FreedomPay. FreedomPay is a commerce platform that runs globally. We focus on, of course, sort of payment transacting security, with I'd say a larger focus with engaging the consumer, understanding buying trends, so that that can sort of turn into better ROI for merchants.
And I'm Scott Johnson with Galileo Processing. I run our sales and business development group. For those who don't know our company, we're located in Salt Lake City, Utah. So what I always joke about is the best part about partnering with Galileo is we're located 15 minutes from Alpha, Snowbird, Brighton, and Solitude, and about 25 minutes from Park City. So if any of you are skiers, please come out and give us a visit. In fact, it's amazing to see in the wintertime how many people do that on a Monday or Friday and call it due diligence. So a little bit more about our company. Again, we're an issuing processing platform. We've been in business for about 17 or 18 years. We focus specifically with fintechs, program managers, issuing banks, power a lot of different mobile programs in both the prepaid, the debit, and the credit space. We work with banks, again, primarily in the US, Canada. We also work with banks in the EU on a number of e-money issuers in the EU as well. And so we have a number of very robust APIs that our partners use and work with to integrate to our platform. And primarily now is going to be in a mobile payments application in partnering and coding to our APIs.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Harpreet Chawla. I'm a VP of Products and Innovation for Switch. We are based in Dallas, Texas, and we are a digital gifting platform for consumers and enterprises. We serve a variety of use cases. From the consumer side, we have our own app for P2P digital gift card exchange, actually sending and receiving. And on the enterprise side, we service use cases like loyalty, rewards, incentives. Our USP is really, we are the world's first patented switchable technology, gift card technology. What that means is you can send, typically when you send a gift card to somebody, 95% of the times they're not going to like it, right? So it goes in the draw. So A is we digitize the process, and B, we made it switchable. What that means is if I send you a Best Buy card and you don't like a Best Buy and you want to switch it to a Macy's, you can instantly switch it free of cost digitally and use it basically. So there is no wastage there. And from a consumer perspective, they get what they want, what the brand that they want, and from an enterprise, from a retailer perspective, they're going to go and spend it, so it's a win-win for both parties, basically. We're based in Dallas, Texas, and we are really a technology shop. We have our stack of SDKs and APIs, and we can integrate with any platform in any form factor, basically. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marcy Gagnon, and I oversee the Strategic Alliance Division at QualPay. QualPay is a multi-channel payment processing platform that really focuses on the merchant experience. And what I mean by that is we're seeing some trends recently where consumers are looking at channels that used to be really quite separate. So you would have in-store, mobile, and online. And really consumers now are seeing that as a single lens experience. They're seeing it as just an extension of that sale. And the challenge for merchants is that they're having to adapt to things they've never really had to think about before. So for instance, buy online, return in store, and buy in one store and return in another. And so QualPay really helps them migrate that process. And what I'd really be interested in chatting about today is as merchants are thinking about adding a mobile solution, and as they're thinking about adding gift and loyalty into their mix, and as consumers are looking at everything as a single lens experience, what that would mean for the future of mobile payments.
Great. And by the way, I have questions, obviously, but if anybody in the audience wants to throw out a question, I always think that makes it more interesting to have an engaged audience. You can ask a question at any time. I'd just start with anyone who wants to answer, what characterizes the customer experience with today's mobile wallets, and how could it be improved to remove friction? And also, what does the role of data in improving the customer experience? So anybody.
I can kick it off. I think in today's world, at least, I'm just speaking in the U.S. here. I think in today's world with mobile implementations, I don't think that there is much of a customer experience. And I'm really speaking to the pays. Similar to my keynote, people aren't looking for a different way to pay, right? People are interested in getting rewarded. They're interested in their life being a little more efficient, things being easier, right? Whether that's ordering ahead, or that's, hey, I'm always going to use this, or this one app because I can always, earn points. And then if I earn points, I can get free things. And sometimes if you're with your friends or your family, and you're going to Starbucks or something, right? Somebody will say, "Oh no, I have the app. I'll get points," right? And they're willing to pay for it because they'll get points. That's why people use mobile apps, because it makes sense. There's some type of accumulation of points, rewards, whatever that might be. I think in today's world with these pays, it's just another way to pay. And frankly, as much as we went through sort of the EMV migration, and it was a pain for everybody just to start to understand what that process looked like with chip cards. It's still easier than pulling out your phone, authenticating your phone, making sure the app opens, making sure the cashier knows what to do. So I think until the pays, these mobile apps, have a way to have people and consumers touching them 5, 10, 15 times a day, I don't think we're going to see that sort of frictionless idea of commerce.
Although I have to say I was absurdly excited I got into the Chicago Transit using my Apple Watch. If anyone was watching me, they probably thought I was some kind of a kook.
Just to add to what Matt said, right?
Yeah.
I think it has to be intuitive, and you have to have value-added services, because that's going to drive the stickiness. Without that, nobody's going to come back and open the app again.
Absolutely. We've heard some horror stories of folks that share a similar credit card, but they have a separate Apple Pay, and they purchased something and they went to go return it. So the husband purchased it, the wife went to go return it, and there was a challenge with that return because even though they utilize the same credit card, the mobile wallets were separate. And so as we're hearing that, it really has to be a frictionless experience for the consumer so that they can continue to go ahead and want to use it and want to extend it throughout their families as well.
For another plug for the U.S. Payments Forum, I don't know if you were here the first day, we ran a workshop. We're actually working on a project right now that defines the merchant impacts of tokenization, and returns is one of the hardest ones
Absolutely.
to solve.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, Harpreet, did you have something about Switch that is a little bit different than these other mobile wallets?
Yes. So, as I said earlier, we've launched the world's first patented switchable technology, right? And I'll repeat the use case that I gave from a consumer perspective. We remove the friction from the process, because typically when it comes to gifting, A, you don't know what to gift somebody, and B is if you decide to pick a gift, 95% of the times they're not going to like it, right? So we're addressing those pain points with our switchable technology, right? And then from a consumer perspective, from an enterprise perspective, we have our great technology stack where we can integrate with banks, to add value-added services, because that's one thing that I'm hearing again and again from financial institutions, that how do we create more value for our customers? We have a big customer base, but how do we increase adoption and stickiness on our applications and platforms? So that's where we come in and introduce the value add. We work with a lot of retailers, like for example in the US, we have about 220 retailers that we work with, and we get special offers that we can offer our enterprise partners and make it a win-win to address the various use cases they have, loyalty, rewards, incentives. From a cross-border perspective, we're doing something very neat. So we just launched our India corridor. We're actually really trying to disrupt the remittance space, basically, right? So if you look at remittance today, it's purpose-based. So it's peer-to-peer, so you're sending money home to your friends and family for family maintenance, grocery shopping, paying utility bills. But that money is spent at retailers, right? So we built a network of retailers in India. We just launched a cross-border piece with India, where you can send a digital gift card overseas instantly without any cost, right? And all you need is a mobile number, so remove the friction from the process. Typically, when you go to a MoneyGram or a Western Union, you need to fill in the paperwork, you need a bank account. There's a lot of friction in the process, and there's cost out there. So in our case, there is no cost to send, there's no cost to receive, there is, and you get the best FX basically. So we're not making money and we're not eating the spread anywhere out there, right? From a consumer perspective, all they need is a recipient mobile number, they instantly get it, and they can spend it at any retailer that they want, basically. So it's really introduces a new way to send money overseas. We just launched India. We have Australia, UK, Philippines on our roadmap coming shortly, basically.
It benefits the retailer too because they
Absolutely, it's a
probably
win-win
cost
for
of
both,
acceptance
yeah.
is better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they don't have to pay to send.
There's no send fees. Yeah. There's no send fees. There's no receive fees. Yeah.
So Scott, what are some of the key technology features in a mobile wallet that have to be integrated to deliver a seamless customer experience?
Yeah, it's a great question. So as we think about our partners that we work with, and I'll talk about kind of a few of the key use cases that we see that make a seamless experience. One in particular that we see is taking any of the friction out of a program. Yeah, maybe some of you use this program called Greenlight. It just launched about a year and a half ago. It's a parent-teen program, and what they've done is they've consumed our APIs so that if I'm a parent and I've got Miles, Tate, and Liam, and they all like to play Fortnite, I think we were talking about this earlier, the parent can, with this product, can set up what they call green lights in real time so that they're able to get in our authorization API stream, and the parent can determine what the spend is for these green lights that they set up for their kids. So for example, if Miles has done his homework, done all of his chores, maybe I'll allow him to spend $10 on that very specific transaction. So you can set this up as a seamless experience where the parent can control exactly where the child is able to spend their money. So again, I could give them access to the Subway here on 123 Elm Street, but not Dunkin' Donuts at 456 State Street, because they're that laser focused on the experience. So it's a real seamless process for very specific use cases. The other thing that we see with our partners and our platform that make a really seamless mobile wallet experience or mobile application experience is if a lot of our partners are acquiring their cardholders or customers through social media or through other type of mobile-first acquisition strategies. I was coming into the city yesterday, I saw a bunch of billboards for a company called Varo. It's one of our great partners. It's a millennial banking product. Chime is another one that does this as well. And they're acquiring their customers through social media. What they're doing then at that point is they're push provisioning in real time an instant issue card to the wallet, right? So if I'm acquiring, going through the pain to acquire a consumer through a mobile process, push that card to the wallet immediately. Don't just wait 7 to 10 days to be able to get a physical piece of plastic. There's nothing worse than having a great mobile experience and then you'll get your card in 7 to 10 days. So I think it's critically important to do that. And we've got a solution both for PCI and non-PCI compliant partners where we can manage that process effectively so that they can get a card. It's a seamless experience, so I can create the application, the mobile bank account in real time, and then I can instantly start using that card.
That Greenlight is the name of the app?
Greenlight, yes. For all of you parents out there with teenagers, I highly recommend going and take a look at it. It's a great partner of ours. Again, they've had phenomenal growth in the last year and a half. And you can go in and control the spend in real time.
It controls a physical card?
Yeah. So you as the parent set up your app and you say, okay, I'm going to allow them to spend at these specific stores or these specific locations, and then you can turn it on and off. So again, if somebody likes, like I was joking, like Fortnite, great. You can only buy one skin today, Miles. You can't buy anything more than that because until you do your homework, nothing else is getting
Well, a
approved.
small business could use that too.
It's a great application. In fact, you'll be very quickly hearing from Greenlight about their small business application.
That's amazing. So for anybody, what innovations are you seeing because you're integrating and working with mobile wallets? What are you seeing across all of the different mobile wallet programs that you're serving?
I think one thing that's, I can take that, one thing that's apparent is if you see the Chinese market and the model, the WeChats of the world, you're seeing one app serving multiple purposes. I think that's where the industry is heading, basically, right? Mm-hmm. So everybody's trying to do that now. With one app, you can do your shopping, your groceries, and whatever else you want to do. So I think WeChat has about like 1 billion customers today, and we're trying to do the same thing where we're trying to go where the customer is. So it's not about us building our app and having one channel. No, it's go where the customer is and have the right experiences on the right platform.
And to follow up on that, as a platform that really caters to the merchant experience and builds out products and functionality on behalf of what they're really looking for and what they need, what we're seeing is a lot of merchants coming in and saying, I really want something that goes across all phones, all
Right.
card brands, and can put our gift and loyalty in it. And so it's becoming a little bit of a challenge, and what they're actually doing is, we're seeing this in the marketplace, they're building their own, and they're building their own individuals. So we see Dunkin' Donuts, and we see Starbucks, and I think, Matt touched on it earlier, you really have these individual wallets that are out there so that people can accumulate their gift and loyalty, and then that makes it just a little bit easier at the return, if there is one, for that, buy in store, return online kind of scenario.
Anybody else? Okay. Matt, we talked a little bit this week about consumer identity and how it ties in with mobile wallets. Can you explain what it means to identify a consumer and how that relates to mobile?
Sure. So, I think when you look at, I sort of joked yesterday about buzzwords, right? When everyone talks about omni-channel, frictionless payments and all of that, right? The reason people talk about it is because that is something we're all trying to achieve, whether you're a merchant, you're a gateway, you're a processor, et cetera. And when in my opinion, the mobile piece is kind of core to accomplishing that vision. And the reason it's core to that is because when you have a mobile app, right, you're able to get the user's name, you're able to, ask them questions, understand things about them. Through the mobile app, you can get things like buying history, right? So you start to build a profile on who that consumer is, right? And there's an identity there. If I just walk into a store, they don't know who I am. I could be the most loyal customer and only buy, my shirts from that company. I've been doing it for 20 years, but they still don't know who I am, just because I'm just another person who walked in. But when I have a mobile app, right, there's that identity, and then we can persist that identity across those other channels, right? We can persist that in store, we can persist that online. And that's really what merchants, retailers, restaurants, that's what they're looking to accomplish, is to be able to say, I know who Matt is, I know where he is, I know what he's buying, and I know that he's a loyal customer. And because he's a loyal customer, I want to provide him offers, rewards, et cetera, so he continues to be a loyal customer. And I think that's, again, what all of those buzzwords are really referring to, is that sort of idea and that vision where we know who our consumers are, and maybe not PII data on them, right, that we have to be concerned about, but we know who they are, at least at a high level from sort of a profile perspective, and then we can treat them the way we need to treat them, right, and provide them different different benefits for shopping with us.
Anybody else, any comments on that? Did anyone see the Black Mirror episode where, I think it was a waitress, and she came back to the table and she said, dude, 3 stars. People are trying to engineer their reputation. And in fact, it's coming down to, in China, it's a real thing. It's not a payments company. The government is collecting so much data on people that in some cases they've prevented people from boarding planes.
Yeah, it's like a human
scary.
rating.
Yes,
Yeah, it's very,
a citizenship rating. Yes.
Just spurred us all a little bit. So in doing this, you're collecting data, right? And a lot of it comes from here, all the different type of solutions, a lot of that is location-based, right? So here's a paradigm a little bit. So we talk about security fraud a lot. And, as an individual, I run a VPN on my phone and stuff like that. For security reasons, right? So just recently, I've run into a lot of problems because companies are doing so much geo-tracking of me that they don't recognize me now when I run a VPN. So there's this convergence that's starting to happen between personal identity protection, you're trying to protect yourself versus everybody else trying to protect you, and then collection and tracking. Where do you see that truly ending? Because that's going to blow up somewhere or other, and somebody's going to drive the line, or it's going to, have a reverse adoption, right? And so,
By the way, which VPN do you use? Because I have one and it's crap.
Ghost or VPN.
Ghost?
Ghost is not bad. They're free up there.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that really quick. Yeah, I think yours is a very difficult use case, right? Because most people don't run a VPN on their phone, right? But there certainly are a handful of people who do that. I've seen some, one of the things that we've built on our platform is a fraud AI component that's trying to look at all these disparate data points and is constantly learning as transactions are coming into the system. So geolocation should always just be one of those locations. Now again, with your VPN, and how you're accessing that might certainly throw that off. And so I think it's a fine line, certainly between, security and not security. One of the other things that we've found with some of our partners that they have done to try and mitigate some of this, they'll leverage what we call our authorization API. And so it's a great use case. We work with a number of brokerage houses to power their debit card programs. And they have a number of authentication processes within a mobile app based on transaction size. So listen, if I'm doing a $8 Starbucks purchase and I'm here in Chicago and I live in Salt Lake City, not a lot of risk on that transaction, right? But because they're a brokerage and the way the balances work between our two systems, we've had experiences where they do have people that want to buy a new Toyota Corolla. I mean, if the Toyota dealership will, accept a $30,000 MasterCard transaction, fantastic. And so what they do in that use case is, again, being in the authorization stream, they'll have to authenticate first in the mobile app. Again, that one is only required for really large transactions, and then they're able to, be involved in that decisioning. So again, they're not just looking at geolocation. They're looking at, on our system and on theirs, they're looking at a number of different data points.
Yeah.
That, what you just explained was really a very specific configuration around fraud, data elements, by use case, by customer. That's where we're going. We don't have it from the very beginning, because that's exactly allows it to define the behavior pattern of that type of customer.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what the way we've designed it is try to get laser focused with some of our partners down to the customer level. Because, for me, I've experienced multiple times. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah. I take the family down to Disneyland. All of a sudden, I'm doing a large transaction. It's like decline. Okay, great. I can get a push alert. I can call Chase, tell them, no, that's actually me, buying whatever. Well, at Disneyland, my gosh, it's going to be $300 to even, look in the mirror. But, you're going to get, but what we're trying to do is just take it down to that individual consumer level, not just put blanket fraud rules out there so that just, you have way too many false positives in those situations.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and my perspective on that, and I think it's a really, really great point, and it's something I'm dealing with kind of constantly. And when you look at GDPR, right? GDPR doesn't necessarily affect us, but California just passed a law that is essentially GDPR. Colorado just passed a similar law that is essentially GDPR. And I think one of the problems we're going to be facing just from a security perspective in the next year or so is that nobody's encrypting data, tokenizing data that is PII data. Everybody focuses and hyper-focuses on PCI data. And our PR firm who's here with us actually wrote a blog on that recently. But we're all talking about how do we descope your environment from PCI perspective. No one's talking about my name, my social security number, my birthday, and all that information, right? And that's very relevant, especially when you talk about like private label types of transactions. And just kind of going back to your point, I think really the decision, the decision is, do I want that experience? Do I, want all the benefits of, having that customer profile on me, or am I, or do I not want that and I want to focus on security and them not knowing who I am? And unfortunately, I don't think that there's a big middle ground.
There isn't, yeah. And also, I think it's also being transparent with what you're collecting, how you're collecting, and how you're going to use that data. You've seen the Facebook fiasco, and recently their security app got yanked from the Apple iTunes marketplace because they did not declare how they were using that information. So I think the trust, building the trust with your customer is important, because that gives them comfort level that their information is being used, it's being authorized to be collected, and used in the right way.
Right, and increasingly important because as we've heard this week, with the switch to CMP fraud, it's more about account takeover than hacked credit card numbers, right? But then on the other hand, all our PII data is out there because of the Equifax hack, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so Marcy, your platform focuses on merchant experience. What are you hearing from them as they migrate to digital wallets, and what kind of push are they getting from their customers?
Absolutely, and we touched on this just a little bit earlier. What we're seeing is that the consumers are really, they may be going into a retail environment to purchase a jacket, but that purchasing path of that jacket nowadays has started way before they actually enter the store. It's happened on a mobile device, when they're on the train coming home from work, or after they put the kids to bed and they're doing rate comparisons or reading reviews. And along with that question, the process in the system really allows to be able to track how those leads came in. And from the mobile experience, the loyalty and how it actually gets there, those are things that merchants are really looking for and need that information to be able to create their marketing campaigns. So from that perspective, there's QR codes that are being looked at now where you can trace a credit card, not necessarily the name, but the actual card all the way through the system. So you can see where it's touched in the different areas. So you can see if somebody's purchased socks, but then they went into the store, you can see that as an extension of the sale, and you can really trace it back that way. But again, it's really coming back to merchants in regards to mobile wallets wanting to add gift and loyalty and wanting to add those QR codes so that they do have that data. And it is a slippery slope, but they want that data to be able to market back to folks and just to not have a transaction.
This is another case where tokenization screws you up, though, because you can't tell it's the same person if they're all different tokens, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's exactly what it is.
Hard
Yep.
to tie together.
Yep. And from a QR code perspective, you can tie at least the card together. So you would know that if it's legitimately that person utilizing the card, they would have used it from a mobile device, or they would have utilized it in a retail environment. And then you can match those cards together. At this point, not really passing on the PID, but more of the cards so that people can see, okay, on a Tuesday, we know that there's 5 people that come in to buy juice, probably because there's a yoga studio across the way and there's a class that's going on, so maybe we can run a promotion specific to that. So you can really start to develop programs that are very specific and merchant focused so that they can grow and succeed in their businesses with the information that they have.
So we've actually, just to expand on that, we've actually solved for that, where we've created what we call an analytical token, which is essentially a consumer ID. And what we do in our database is we tie multiple tokens that customer in that mobile wallet has added to the wallet, and we tie them all to that one ID. And then we can, because we're of course a payment gateway, we're a PCI DSS level 1 facility, right? So we have to store all that data encrypted at rest, but we can then say, okay, well, this consumer, they added this Visa and this MasterCard in their wallet. And if you forget about the wallet for a second, now if they use that same Visa or MasterCard in that environment, and they just as a swipe or a dip, we do that lookup and we say, oh, well, this is Matt, because we know that Matt added this card to his wallet, right? So that's how we start to bring all of that data together.
If you're familiar with, it's called PAR, it's an EMV standard, it hasn't been implemented yet. What does it stand for? Anyway, it's like that. It's a token that identifies the consumer across. So is it like that? It comes back with the authorization message?
Exactly. So essentially, we're using par values for both EMV and for Apple. So Apple's also developing par values, and I think
you're actually using par.
Yeah. So basically, we tie them to that consumer ID, so we know that Apple Pay token, the same issue that we just brought up, that Apple Pay token that has the same card tied to it, we know it's the same card.
I have to remember that so I can interview you for our white paper.
Yeah, and absolutely, and that's the thought process, that you can really trace that card and that consumer experience against multiple platforms inside of a gateway. So if there is a buy online, return in store scenario, you can go in and you can grab that token and you can help with that return.
It stands for payment account reference.
It does.
Yeah. Okay.
I was thinking, I knew I couldn't remember the P.
Yeah.
I had the rest.
So, Matt, I have another question for you. In researching and preparing for this panel, I read a blog. It was kind of funny. He said it costs as little as $40 a month to implement multiple updates, coupons, lock screen notifications, and announcements with Apple or Google Pay. But it costs about $10,000 to develop a crappy app that no one will use. So, does your solution support that point of view? How can these mobile apps be used to enhance loyalty?
Sure. I mean, from a solution perspective, we can absolutely support any mobile wallet, a crappy one, a good one. It's really just about, adding our mobile SDK to that wallet, and we sort of act as that wallet functionality where we can store the cards. We can add those cards to a consumer ID as a common reference point, track that data, track SKU level data. We can do that with any mobile wallet. I think the bigger question is, kind of where is the industry going? I think, in the short term, we're going to continue to see the Walmart Pays and the Sears Pays and all these different pays, because those individuals, those organizations, they have a huge following of consumers, right? And all they need to do is do one email blast, and they're probably going to get 15% of their consumer base to download that app. And just other promotions, they can keep growing that. I do think if we fast forward 3-4 years, I do think we are going to see the Apple Pays and the Google Pays and all these other pays have really evolved to incorporate, Home Depot and Walmart and all these other brands into their apps, right? And have point sharing programs, so you do everything through a single kind of hit point. And we've talked about Alipay, we've talked about WeChat Pay a lot in the past few days, and they have that model, right, where people love the app. They touch that app, they go into that app 20 times a day because it can do everything for you. It's your Amazon, it's your Uber, it's your airlines, it's how you pay your utility bills. And there were some comments previously about how we can't get there because of government regulation and legacy payment systems. I completely disagree with that notion, because you can still have companies that are collaborating, exchanging point systems, and doing those things without ever having to deal with the government.
To add to what he said, on WeChat, there was a data point released that in China, consumers spend 90 minutes a day on WeChat.
It's amazing.
It's incredible.
The other interesting thing just about WeChat and Alipay, I was at some of you probably were as well, at the Visa conference earlier this summer, and President of Visa was going through talking about WeChat and Alipay in China, and started off the keynote session with, how can you imagine if everyone in this room lost 25% of their market share in the last 12 months? So that's exactly what happened with China Union Pay in China over the last 12 months. They lost 25% of their market share to WeChat and Alipay.
It's amazing.
That government doesn't like that because they like China Union Pay, but anyway. I was going to ask a ridiculous question about when will mobile payments be here, so I'm not going to ask that question. Does the audience have any more questions? We have a couple more minutes. Marcy talked a little bit about omni-channel. Any of the rest of you have any comments about how to support omni-channel and how it's done?
I'm sure I can jump in on that. I think we've talked about it a lot, right? I think
Yeah.
it's the idea of knowing who your consumer is, knowing who they are in store, online, through mobile, and again, I think mobile is the core to that, because that's really how you start to gather information, on that customer. Just as a quick example, one of our customers, they use our platform, and they're able to use that mobile SDK to not just create a wallet functionality, but also do things like send out push notifications in the app. It's a fast casual customer. Restaurant, and basically they can ask questions, what's your favorite type of food, what's your favorite NFL team, and when the consumer answers those, right, they send that data to us, we bucket that data for them. Now they have those consumer IDs in buckets, and they can send out a push notification just to Philadelphia Eagles fans, we're from Philly, Philadelphia Eagles fans, and try to get them into the the local sports bar. So there's things like that you can do that kind of brings that whole experience together.
Just to add to that, the challenge with the omni-channel is, how do you stitch the right customer journey, right? It's never easy to say customer went from point A to point B to point D and stitch it together. So there are some data issues there, as how much you can identify that customer, who they are, and then how do you target that with the right offering, basically.
Right, and at what point does it become creepy?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Do you have another comment,
Yes,
question?
question. So you had mentioned potential takeover earlier, and fraud is changing in a lot of ways as it's progressing forward, and so preventive and conscious of it it helps us understand, right? Because the bad guys will always find a way to make things think. So you have to at least try to think in a bad way just to try to figure it out. One of the biggest movements is synthetic identity. So when we talk about account takeover, and especially GPR cards and stuff like that, they can, in the past have been able to take cards and put them in a sleeve over here in a wallet, kind of almost money laundering to some extent. They get the funds out. Synthetic identity scares the fire out of me, because it's like, now I really can't validate who that is on the other end, because they really look and feel like a real people. Our validation certs don't really work too well
Right.
or anywhere. So, I mean, they're okay, and they're kind of like, that's why we're tracking all this data, to try to protect ourselves. But synthetic identities, and then the next step is even worse, is when they're sitting right there in front of you, you're really not that person, right? So that's kind of where we're headed with all this global cyber. Any thoughts on that? I mean, how would you defend against those things? And a card issuer
Yeah.
is different than some of the other.
It's interesting as again, as an issuing processor, I mean, that's some of the stuff that keeps us up at night, not to mention something as crazy as, weaponized AI and where some of that might be going. But I think some of the things that we look at is we track fraud across our portfolios. We always try to be, it's like the old joke, if you're in the woods and there's a bear, I don't have to run faster than the bear, I just got to run faster than the guy next to me, right?
I'm pretty
So,
fast.
yeah, I got to run faster than the guys over here. So what we're trying to do on our platform is look at multi-dimensional fraud capabilities using the Visa risk score, the MasterCard decision intelligence score. We run things through our dynamic fraud rules engine, and then our last component that we've spent a lot of time and money on is our fraud AI capabilities. And the reason why I say that is we're never going to eliminate fraud, and some of these synthetic types of experiences that you were talking about are very, very scary. What we're trying to do is just be a little bit better than we can the next guy, because we're never going to get fraud down to where it's eliminated. I can tell you right now, Visa and MasterCard portfolios typically track at about 5 or 6 basis points. Most portfolios on our platform are averaging about 1 to 2 to 2.5 basis points of fraud loss. We have some programs moving from other processors where they don't have those capabilities that are running about 15 to 18 basis points of loss, which is unbelievable. So that's what I just call stupid fraud. I mean, then that's just unbelievably
You're not
dumb
even
fraud.
doing
If you're at
address
18, you're like, what are you doing? So, again, it's a tough one, and it's a very scary world out there for sure.
Right, right.
The interesting thing is that we're seeing less, and I think we touched on this a little bit yesterday, less from a mobile perspective, because
Right.
you leave your home and you bring your keys and your phone, and maybe your wallet, but your keys and your phone for sure. And because you're there and you can identify yourself and authenticate it, it's probably you are who you say you are when you're making that transaction.
Well, I think we're
That's
just
want to add
about out
one
of
comment
time.
there. So from our perspective, fraud is a big piece, and we built our own proprietary AML models and all. We can actually track down patterns by payment method. Let's say using Apple Pay versus PayPal versus a card, we individually score a customer based on the channel they're using, the payment method, and we can infer patterns and decide whether they're good or bad and allow them in or not, basically, right? It's sub-second decisioning, but our fraud rates are very, very low because of the intelligence that we built in, with the AI and all coming in, and how do we identify whether they're the legit customer or not, basically.
Okay, I'd like to thank the panelists, a really great discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.